The huge difference is that the older games, I think, were a lot tougher.
There was a purity to the idea in the classic era because you were getting one guy, right or wrong, you were getting one guy's vision of what the experience wanted to be. And then from the PS1 onward, you were getting stuff that was much more collaborative.
If you did not get your jump exactly right to land on a platform, you were not getting through that level. Timing was everything. Now you have a lot more freedom. You can kill a boss many different ways, but then it was more about, it's what I call the thumb busting era.
People who draw, if they can't draw well, they'll put a bunch of detail on it because it's poorly designed. And it really doesn't take that much detail to make a great drawing. So if it's all covered in hair and scales and all this stuff, you know they're probably hiding something. Well, the same thing's happening in video games. And I'm not saying that about all games. But whatever's great about a game today is probably what's great about it 10 years ago.
As games got more complex, the story started to take over. It's very much like, in my mind, early films. When you saw the Lumiere brother films, it shocked people to see a train coming into a station, and that was the entire film. And people would run out of the theater in the very beginning because they never having seen a movie before, they thought a train was actually coming at them. But then you got the one-reelers, then you got the two-reelers, and they started to do more complex stories. It's exactly the same with games. Now the games may not be instantly understandable because you have to dig deep into it, but now you're starting to get stories that have a lot of depth to it.
So when you compare older games and newer games, it's, older games are kind of like comics. The pieces are there, but your brain puts it together. And modern games are more like movies. It's just all laid out for you. And I'm not saying that either one's better than the other. It's just different.
In the 70s and early 80s, there was no way console video games were going to compete with movies or television, and that is absolutely not true today. There are video games that have the exact same narrative impact and depth of storytelling and budgets that $100 million films have. In fact, recently I had some time to myself in my house, and I do this thing about once a year where I rewatch the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and I just go coast to coast on it over a weekend, and by the end of the thing I sort of look and feel like Howard Hughes. And I mean like the living in Las Vegas Howard Hughes, not the cool young flying the spruce goose Howard Hughes. And I had this time, and I was also on my first playthrough of Dragon Age Origins. And rather than watch Lord of the Rings, where I'm just a passive observer, I spent the same amount of time, roughly 30 hours, playing Dragon Age Origins because it gave me an opportunity to affect the story and be an active participant in the narrative decisions and in the action and in the character development, rather than a movie where I'm just sort of doing what the director tells me to do.
The greatest paintings and the greatest sculptures and the greatest music ever written is in our past, guaranteed. The greatest comic books and the greatest video games are in our future, guaranteed.